So, good afternoon, everybody. Now we switch for half an hour, more or less, to English because we have, say, an international panel this evening. I started to get interested in legal tech more or less 10 years ago, and one of the very first person I met on this path was actually Eric Eck, who is not a lawyer, but he is part of EY Law. When I met him, he was a vendor, so he sold me a software that I wanted to introduce at EY. It was not a big success, but he joined EY, and now is my legal tech leader for Europe West. So he has become more or less my boss, together with Stefania, of course. So please.
I will keep that a little bit higher, Christian. Hello, everybody. So I will not even try to do the Italian trick. I'm very glad to be here, and I wanted to thank Stefania to welcome me as well. As Christian mentioned, I'm not based in Italy. I'm based in Zurich. I'm a Frenchman. I have been in this business of law, taking care of technology for about 20 years, even a bit more. And my most recent job before joining EY a couple of years ago was to lead the legal software division in Europe for Thomson Reuters. So this is where we cover a few things. Christian has asked me to talk to you today about different topics about the digitalization. The risk was for me to fall on the sort of inventaire à l'après-vert, as we say, basically coming over each and the different type of technologies, but I wanted to talk about digitalization itself. The first thing is that the entire world is going digital. Legal is following. And when I'm looking at legal going digital, I'm seeing in-house legal team going digital. I'm seeing law firms going digital. The legal managed services is digitizing as well. You have different components digitizing. We believe that there is a future to interconnect, hence the title, how to get the dots together of these different components to make something different, because it is really about how to power the ecosystem that constitutes the part of the legal function to make that work. So I'll try my button now. The first is about the ecosystems. I believe that the legal function belongs to two ecosystems. So the first one is really the corporate work. So this is what happens in your company. The second is really the legal work that you are providing to your corporations. Why do I mention ecosystems? Because I really think that what matters here is the data that can flow across the different functions in your corporation and flow as well in the different stakeholders of what the legal function is. The first ecosystem I'm trying to stop a little bit on is the legal ecosystem, the legal function ecosystem. You can see on the screen there are 5 components, one being your in-house team, another one being your law firms, another one being your managed services, or ALSPs as we call them. I also have your own internal shared service centers for the biggest company, the largest companies, where you have more and more lawyers as well, or paralegals handling some work. And what I do call the self-service component. How do people actually access your resources without having you around here? When we talk about digitalization, each of these components is digitizing. So there is a risk, there is a danger to actually increase the silo effect with all the components sort of digitizing themselves. Again, digitizing the entire ecosystem means that you can basically get the data flowing across the different things, because an information that comes from the in-house team goes to a law firm, comes back to your internal clients. It should flow like that without any stoppage. So that's what we call the digitalization of the legal function ecosystem. The second here, just for sake of illustration, you remember the second ecosystem is the corporate ecosystem. I'm sitting here one service around entity compliance, entity management. And you can see that it sits between accounting and income tax compliance. So why do I use that? It's just to materialize the fact that if you get the data from the annual general meeting back to finance, they can basically do their work much faster and much better. So powering the digital ecosystems is working on both at the same time to enable data to flow all across. What are you digitizing? And I say digitizing today, and that means basically in the last 15 years, because frankly, we have all tried different things. So you mentioned trying, failing, restarting. It's completely inherent to the technology and to the fact that you're building an improved process and these sort of things. However, what I'm trying to get across to you here on this slide is that you have 4 fields that you can apply software to operate better for you. Name it tools, name it solutions, name it software. It's about the same. It's about getting the data across. So I'm usually also calling that the plumbery. How do you get the data from A to B and getting somewhere? Those 4 fields are: how do I manage my legal operations? So this is anything about time, tasks, the spend, the matter management itself. You have how do I manage knowledge, risk, and rights. I would put contract for the legal function in there, for example, but it's also where you find IP, GDPR, data privacy, and these sort of things. The third bucket, so to say, is about the increased performance of the legal work, so the augmented lawyer. So that's about reading faster, and it's about writing faster, but it's also, depending on the type of companies that you are, how do you use specific platforms to be able to manage your transactions, manage your litigation, and these sort of things. The last is this hot topic of self-service, where basically there has been experimentation about setting up NDA machine without having an in-house lawyer touching even the NDA itself, and you have a lot to deliver to your internal clients. What is also often very much underrated is everything you can do for your own client. Depending again on your industry, on your company, there is a lot you can bring to the client directly in order to ease and accelerate the process of a lot of things and basically contribute on top of bottom line much easier for your colleagues. How do I get this continuous progress? Because it's a continuous work in progress. I just schematize here a sort of easy way to sort of completely round the discussions about legal operation. We all know that the trick is to fall into, I want a technology. I have a problem, I need a technology to solve my problem, and you go to tech. And then you think you're around it. Often you have questions peers to peers. What type of contract lifecycle management do you use? I use this one, and that's it, I can run with it. Actually, there is a lot of things you can do with legal function consultancy to make sure that you are really targeting the right things and that you're doing it the right way. A whole range of things like organizational design. I'll let you read these slides coming through. But all these components are here to reinforce that you're actually making the right choice, having the right business case, having the right way of implementing things, and then only can you run and make sure that you are actually implementing this solution the right way. It is also here where you can get opportunities to visit what you do not want to digitize yourself, but you would like to have a service provider that is tech-enabled already. So legal managed services here. So entity management, contracting, regulatory mapping are obvious ones. The last and chunky one. So when we look at digitalization as a solution, it's one thing. There is a layer of complexity if you want to go to this ecosystem digitalization because it integrates inevitably with SAP or any other financial commercial enterprise management software and with Microsoft as a productivity tool. So these slides here are showing you the different components. So it's yourself with law, but your colleagues as well. And then you see as well who is leading the different things because it needs coordination to be able to digitize all that properly. and also the activity leads, to make sure that you can really get the right roadmap together to digitize. We're often talking about roadmaps for a software development in order to make sure that the features of a software are growing the right way. But in a large digitalization project such as the one I'm advocating for today requires also a roadmap to get going. And you see it on the side, the technical application groups. You can have the SAP, the Microsoft layer, some other type of layers. Each of these people are your IT functions, most of the time in response to be able to do it. And you see some yellow dots just to display what we are talking about. The yellow dots are, yes, we have that, we need that in the different things, and the black are the one that you do not need. If you do work that frame properly, bringing the different steering committee together to run it, then you can indeed, for example, take a liability clause, for example, and extract this value to flood into the financial and the commercial sides. This is what I wanted to display to you in a less than 15 minutes display. And I would like now to also move on and to welcome our guests with Giovanni Barberis, who is head of legal at Data Next, with Talita Ramos Eriksson, who is GC at Barilla, and with Dominic Calista, who is in the insurance and banking services general counsel at Generali. And I will be sitting with you, asking you a few questions. All good? It's a bit hot here. Giovanna, do you want to introduce yourself very briefly so that we can get started, maybe with Domenica?
Yeah, it works already? Yeah. Okay. Yes, I'm Domenica Lista. I'm in Generali Group since 2016. I have a long experience in the banking field, and I'm a lawyer, even though, as we spoke this morning, I cannot use the title of lawyer because for Italian regulation, you cannot have, Eric, the double role of in-house lawyer and lawyer as well. So I should say, with a little voice, I'm avvocato, but I cannot say louder because we are not allowed to that. And I think it's very interesting, the topics that you introduced, and I think your keywords in flow, but I will discuss later about it.
Talita, you start?
Hi, everyone. My name is Talita Ramos Erickson, and I'm the Chief Legal and Compliance Officer for the Barilla Group. I've been with Barilla for almost 9 years now, but just recently here in Italy, I was the General Counsel for the Americas region, and last year I replaced our, at that time, Chief Legal and Compliance Officer, Franco Guariglia, who retired last year. So happy to be here.
Giovanna.
Hello, everybody. I'm Giovanna Barberis. I'm a lawyer as well, and I work in-house since 2005. I did an internship in IBM, so I started my love for the IT matters. So I've been working for CSC, Computer Science Corporation, for approximately 10 years, managing all the Italian operation. And now I'm the legal manager in Data Group, which is an Italian company. Very nice environment because it's an Italian multinational company. Currently, I am focused on all the PNRR and public services matters.
Thank you. So I was talking about data, about flows, about project management, about complexity and things like that. I would like to start with you, Talita. And I would like to understand how do you assess your priorities when you're facing that monster job that is digitizing the legal function? And two things I would like to add. What is the urgent? What is the important?
That is a great question. And
Thank
as
you.
And there's a total plug for EY work here, I know. I loved the slides you were showing earlier, and I think when I started on this job a year ago, I had already started working on some initiatives on doing exactly what you and Christian described, of taking the step back and looking at the overall department and looking at it more strategically, not I need a software for that and finding a solution. So one of the things that we decided to do is that we didn't know what were the priorities or what was important, what was urgent. We had lots of requests. We're a small team, so we don't have a legal operations person. We don't have somebody who's actually looking at the department management, understanding what needs to be done. So one of the things that we did, we reached out to several suppliers with the help of our IT business partner. So we have somebody in the company in IT who supports the legal team. And that person reached out to a number of vendors and said, our legal team needs a roadmap. They need somebody to help them figure out what are the priorities, what is important, based on what criteria. And that work took a while, so EY was selected. So we worked with EY on developing this roadmap. And it's interesting because there's never going to be something that you can just get and give it to your client, because the culture of companies is different. I remember having conversations with Christian because when we were talking at some point about, the delivery models and self-service, and I was like, that will never work at Barilla because our internal clients, they want to talk to someone. I can't just do an NDA machine. Nobody's going to use it. So actually understanding the culture of the company, understanding how things can work. And for us, the priorities were, our team is swamped, so we need to find productivity tools. We need to figure out how to be more efficient, so that was priority number one. And priority number two is business impact. So out of the 1,000 things that we could do in terms of digitalizing legal processes and legal activities, what are the ones that will help the team be more efficient and free up time so they can do other things? And the second one, which ones are going to deliver the biggest impact for the business? So we have a roadmap that is so it's for the next 3 years, and we're slowly making progress through that.
Well, that's good to hear that you have a roadmap. That's the starting point, indeed. The thing is that it never stops. You know that, yeah. So that's the other component.
Concerning the priorities, if I give another point of view, always of a similar kind of company, of course, what the managing director asks, of course, goes on the top of the list of the priorities, independently of the value. Okay, it could be also an NDA.
But he knows, yeah.
Yeah, huh? yeah, he knows. But for example, junior colleagues may not know. And they prefer, for example, to do a very nice negotiation with a nice customer, and instead, this is a very, very important rule inside the company. Then, this is the value of the matter and the risk. So it's not a matter of you can do something like rules. It's a complicated.
So it's like a matrix of these high value, low value, and high volume, low volume. Yeah?
High risk, low risk, and on top, managing director.
Good. Dominica, did you see about the same patterns? Because I know that you're in a smaller legal department. That may be Dominica and Tatiana.
If I can add something about it, absolutely she's right, because the CEO, is the top of your priority. You cannot say no, but you can train them. It's a long journey, and luckily you should stay in a company longer than, short period, otherwise you cannot educate people. And also a CEO needs to be educated, let's say that. Yeah. So, of course, it takes time, it takes energy, it takes also a kind of leadership that you should have, because sometimes you should be able to make understandable that things that looks like very important are not important. And of course, you should learn how to tell that to a CEO, because you cannot say, your question is not so important because I have an authority at my door asking for information. So you should find the between the roadmap that I strongly believe is very important, it's crucial, but also you should be flexible enough to understand when the CEO question is really crucial and when it's not, and in this case, you should say no. You should say no sometimes.
But sometimes if he says by tonight or by tomorrow morning,
Yeah, you
believe
cannot
me,
negotiate.
it
You
is
cannot
quite important.
negotiate.
Yeah.
So the importance of tomorrow morning. But that's bringing me to another question to you, Giovanna, because you have set up this department at your company, and it was a really fast-paced growing company. That adds another layer to the complexity, doesn't it? Because you have to deal with an extraordinary amount of new stuff every day. How do you cope with that? Do you have time for roadmaps, or do you leave that aside constantly?
You should have time for roadmap as well, because in order to build the legal culture within a company, you have to be really organized. And currently, to be organized means to be strongly digitalized and know how to work and use technology for building the legal culture as well. So it has been interesting as well to give to benefit of my experience within a multinational company, because of course in CSC we were strongly digitalized. We had a lot of instruments and tools and so on. Also from my colleague abroad in US or at EMEA level. And it has been nice and challenging as well to do on my own, and building trust and building the legal culture, because it doesn't mean that the company was illegal, okay? It was not working legal. But Italian companies are really, they want to have the legal inside, but not something that stops the business. You have to be very, very fast. You have to follow the business needs. And so the technology and digitalization has to be used as something to help this kind of the business needs.
Exactly. I would like now to go to Dominica, because I have my notes, because we did a bit of preparation. So I have to not miss a few questions. There was one thing, Dominica, that we discussed that I found very interesting. It's when you have multinational lawyers in different places, what are the helps and what are the hurdles of the technology that you want to deploy to get to work as a team on a consistent the ways of your work in different countries? How would you describe that? Yeah. Is it helpful? Is it...
Absolutely. And I got the chance to work for Europe Assistance, that is holding on the holding group of Generali Group, and is a multinational at the end of the day that is between Generali Group. And I took the place of General Counsel during the COVID crisis. So it was the nightmare of my life, because you don't have a team yet. You should build a team in a multinational environment. So how I can find a way to create a legal framework that works everywhere with the reality of each country, because each country has its own regulators, has its own rules, and I work for a very regulated system. So the things that I heard in other panels for me are, I don't want to be rude, but are all things for me, because with regulators in the banking and the financial sectors, you should think about compliance 10 years ago. And so the really challenged things for me was how I can go quickly on this big company with this big group without digitalization. For me, the digital system and the digital tool are key and are going to boost my work and the work of legal team. So we got some discussion with you as well, and if you don't have these tools that allows you to have a common legal framework, you cannot go faster in a time, in ages where the time is key. It's crucial to give a quick answer in a legal fields, and having this legal framework due to the digital system is very helpful.
So that's bringing me to bounce on your roadmap. So you have your roadmap in place. It's all done, the roadmap.
So
now, how do you staff your digitalization? Who are the profiles that you require to drive your agenda further?
Yes, and thank you for the question. There is so much change, obviously, with the transition from the previous chief legal and compliance officer and myself. And one of the things that we did is that we also took the opportunity to reorganize the department. So we do have one person in our team who is a legal counsel for digital e-commerce. So she has an IT. So she has a number of different functions under the technology. And she leads these projects now. Before it was me. Now she does and I work very closely with her on that. We have obviously our IT business partner who needs to be involved in everything because as you showed, our IT team has the high level, the big picture of all the different projects that are going on in the company. And we had to work with them because and we did all the low-hanging fruits, like upskilling the team, looking at the tools we have and training our team to use that. But in terms of business impact, and obviously you already talked a lot about contract lifecycle management, this is probably the one that would have the highest business impact for us. And for that one, there's financial commitment, there's stakeholders that you need to engage, there's an approval process because it's a project that will be capitalized. So we had to work with our IT team to actually build a business case with our supply chain, procurement. So we had a bunch of stakeholders to engage, to go all the way to the global leadership team and put with all these other digitalization projects, why this one should be top 5 and be done this year. And we got it, but again, because we had a very, very strong support from IT and from our team.
So you could relate to the last slide very well.
Totally.
Good, that's good. It's good for me to hear that. Thank you. You already mentioned the COVID, Giovanna, but what has accelerated? Of course, there was Teams. Of course, there was the remote working and so on and so on. Was automation and has automation a new traction? Did you also work on standardization of your templates and things like that? What sort of fell together naturally, like by magic, because of the COVID pandemic, and what was still a struggle to get across?
With my team during COVID, I can say we were already, to some extent, we were already ready in the sense that I live and work in Rome, and my team is composed was because now I'm building a new team, under the new CIO. And so we were, me and 3 other colleagues, and as a legal manager in an Italian company, I do not only manage the team, but I work as well. So, and my team was composed by one graduated, living in Ferrara and studying in Trento, and another one living in Trento, and another one living in Padua, one senior lawyer, one younger lawyer, and one apprentice, So we were already ready to work from different places, working from remotely. Of course, we benefit of the fact that we are in the IT market, so we already have everything, our archives and our email running on a cloud environment, So we were already using Team and all the other instruments. So we have all our archives in SharePoint and OneDrive. So we were to some extent already ready to working from remote. The challenge during COVID was that it seems like a never-ending story. So you can work from remotely for 3, 4, 6 months. Then you see, because you have to meet your team somehow. No? So every 3, 6 months at least. Yeah. So it was the challenge was to continue also with all the struggle that each one has had during COVID, all the difficulties to be alone, for example, for the younger lawyer, alone in a stranger city, or again, if you are 30 years old with your family at home, or for me, for example, being at home and trying to work with my kids, everyone doing lessons on using PC as well. So this was probably the struggle, because as IT company, we were already ready with a lot of nice tools and instruments helping us to working from remote.
Exactly. There is one thing I want to go now to Dominica, because what I forgot to mention in my last slide is that actually it's the whole story. We all know that people see us in-house lawyers as being the last to embrace digitalization, always the latest compared to everybody. I do not think it's true, but that's what is said out there. So going to the usage of artificial intelligence, going to robot process automation, going through automated decision makings by machine based on input from data, this data flowing that I was trying to describe earlier. That leads me to believe that the legal department can also be a contributor to the business, because when you look at all these data flowing, there is a need to have a strategy to govern the APIs, the application programming interfaces, for example. Dominica, how do you see AI impacting the legal department being on top of a few topics in a corporation today?
Yeah, I mentioned before the word flow that you described at the beginning of your panel. And I think it's really a key word. And it is linked to the way we interpreted the role of in-house lawyer. Luckily for me, because I think I cannot handle anymore a role of a legal counsel that say yes or no. I think that the legal counsel should be a support for the business, at the same time a guardian and a business partner, an angel partner and a guardian. And so it's crucial that the legal team and the in-house lawyer is also interpret at the core of the interpretation of artificial intelligence. We mentioned earlier that I really like the word algorithmics. And why I mentioned this word, because in anything we are doing with the digitalization, if we forget the human touch and human being, and at the same time also the legal framework, you can lose something. You can lose not only the legal framework that should be always there as a roadmap, but at the same time you should always think about the final destination of the tool that you create. And without the human interpretation, you cannot do good things. I mentioned this algorithmics word because it was created by Franciscan monk, Paolo Benati. He created this word just giving the power and the meaning of the importance of human and ethics in the artificial intelligence. So why I mentioned with the legal counsel? Because a legal counsel that is able to interpret this concept, this role, can really be a support and a help for the development. And is a flow, because you cannot work in a silos way. You cannot have on a side operational compliance officer, risk managers, or IT department, and on the other side, the board of directors or the general counsel. You should work all the time in a circle way, in a flow way. And we use the word holistic approach. I think the key word is holistic approach. And this is the way I interpret my role.
That brings me back to the ecosystem again. Because here it's easy for all of us to talk about the corporate ecosystem, right? Our colleagues. And that's what you describe with the framework, etc. But the reality is that most in-house teams still heavily rely on their external law firms and other means that I tried to describe on one of those slides. How do you see that data flowing? Is it the impossible frontier, or is it desirable but very hard to get? How would you say?
I'll give a very lawyer answer, depends. I think that in the current environment, at least for my experience with the network of law firms that we have, I think it would be difficult to, let's say, automate or get the flows a little more digitalized versus, getting a report that then you input somewhere. I've had some interesting experiences when I worked for Kraft in Brazil. We had thousands of lawsuits. Brazil is a very litigious society, and lawsuits last, 10 years, 20 years, so you have this like legacy. Every time you buy a company, you buy 1,000 lawsuits with it. And one of the things that we realized is that it was pretty much impossible to keep track of everything. So we created a kind of like a cloud-based system where the law firms input data about the status, and we could kind of analyze reports as opposed to getting case by case, because honestly it was just impossible. By the time I left Brazil, we had almost 3,000 cases that we're managing, so we need to figure out how to cluster them, how to analyze the data. So that is an example of how you can connect to the law firms. It was not easy for the law firms to engage with us this way. They charge us a lot. They charge us to get set up, but it depends on the need. So if you have the need,
is the disease email then?
I don't know if the disease is email. I think that there's better collaboration tools that don't, I always use the example with my team. If you share a file and we're all working on that file, as opposed to creating, 10, 20, 50 versions of that same file that keeps going back and forth, that is good all around. So I think if there's better collaboration tools than emails.
And it works on transactions, huh? So
May I add something on these topics? Because absolutely I have the same experience with the international team and so on. But I think we can leverage the experience that we have in one country, in another country. I remember a case that we had in the US. Few months later, we had the same problem in another country. Of course, the solution was different because the legal framework in the US was not the same in Bulgaria or Hungary, but you have a common framework that we built previously with the team, and we say, okay, it works. Because building this legal framework, you can see that the solution that you used in the US can work as well in Czech Republic or wherever it happens. So it's very important.
Absolutely, go ahead.
No, it's just to connect with what was Domenica saying. Of course, nowadays it's another matter of connecting the dots because I have a good memory, and so the legal manager say yes. So of course we have to you have to provide and use the tools that can help, because sometimes the legal manager may be ill or maybe on holiday and somewhere else. So we have a lot of good tools to help. And in addition, you were asking about what about the data, no? Well, we should use or not. I think we should use because all the business, it's a matter of data, algorithm, AI. We cannot, as legal and as Italian, to say no. Of course, we have to use it. Also in our job, because, for example, just to share how many negotiations we did during a year, how many risks we managed and faced through litigation, and how many money did the company saved through our good management of the litigation. So I think we should use it a lot. Of course, also to let the management understand what kind of job we do every day and how good sometimes it is.
So that is about dashboarding and displaying how good you're doing for the business in general, which is also the best way to get...
the team, of course. No.
But it's also the best way to get the next business case for more digitalization and more tools being better accepted by your CFO, for example, yeah? Any experience, because I see time going, just what is in that order from you, Domenica? How are you getting on with the CFO for asking for some fundings for digitizing your legal function?
Well, luckily for me, I worked for an important group where the technology is already there, so it was not a big deal. But it's true that very often the CFO is the budget guy that used to say, yeah, but you really need that. And again, it's a negotiation process. That's why using your negotiation quality and capacity, you can use with different stakeholders. What is the key for the CFO? For the CFO, you should be able to make understandable how save money in the future, spending few money today. So you should sell your deal as a win-win deal.
Same to you?
I'm just going to be in a very peculiar situation because our CFO is our CIO. So he holds both jobs. So I would say it's not that hard to convince him that digitalization is important.
So he's your sponsor then, yeah?
Yes.
Yeah, good. That's a good point to be. What about you? You are the technology business, so...
Yeah, so we have our CFO is, of course, is very interested on what the legal team does in terms of workload, in terms of, for example, the legal team is in some company of the group. The one lawyer is under the CIO. Okay, so he's in the line of the CIO, and then, but there is also the legal team, which is that is in the holding company. So it's a matter of giving to the other companies the payment for the services rendered as the holding company. So it's very interested on what we do and how much do we work for each company, and how many negotiations do we manage, how many money, and so on, as I told it before. So the CFO understands very well this kind of, for example, in my company, just to going more into deep on the legal solution, I already saw some type of solution in order to help the legal team for having, for example, the litigation matters, the multi-country management of the legal team, and so on. And I asked, of course, the price. I gave it to my CFO, and he said, "Oh no, it's too much." Okay, just to be very open. So now we manage the legal request through the service desk ticketing tool. Okay, like when you ask to change your mouse on the desk. There is the legal space with contract revision, public tender, and so on. So it's I could think it's a very nice and perhaps naive way to manage, but it's something very shareable during this. Okay.
Absolutely. So we have happy panelists with good CFOs. That's a good conclusion. I see time has gone. I promised you that it would be an easygoing discussion, and especially as none of us are English native. So I really appreciate all of our efforts, and use the audience for listening to us in English as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Eric.
Mi sa che tutto sta... No. Steve, perché non vieni anche tu, così facciamo il finale tutti insieme e ci divertiamo? Come da schema.
Non so se... Sì, funziona. È stata una lunga giornata.
Discreta maratona. Allora ragazzi, siamo qui con Marta e l'idea è questa, di presentare un super estratto da un report TFO, Tax Function, relativamente al tema finanziario fiscale insieme, Crediamo, no, Marta, di aver estrapolato 2 o 3 dati interessanti, quantitativi, perché è una statistica, o meglio una survey, e da lì facciamo qualche ragionamento insieme.
No, anche perché abbiamo appena finito di parlare di legal technology, credo che questi ragionamenti che stiamo facendo lato tax possono essere facilmente applicati anche alle funzioni legali, quindi secondo me è utile ragionare insieme di questi temi.
Sì, sicuramente è stata fatta questa survey a un gruppo di quasi 2000 CFO e tax leader in Europa e gli si è chiesto di parlare di tutti quelli che sono i trend che impattano la funzione fiscale e finanziaria delle società. Quindi in termini di headcount, in termini di trasformazione, di tecnologia, di ESG. E come diceva Stefania, sicuramente tutto quello che vedremo, che è il risultato della survey, sono impatti che sono comuni forse sia alla funzione legale che alla funzione fiscale. Questa survey ovviamente è stata fatta in modo anonimo e indipendente, è stata fatta su tutto il mondo e qui invece vedremo quella che è l'estrazione su una quarantina di paesi europei e rappresentano circa una dozzina di mercati. Questi sono, diciamo, il proprio super riassunto di quelli che sono gli impatti e sono impatti che si possono ricondurre in 4 filoni molto intercollegati tra di loro. E la cosa principale è sicuramente i regolatori, cioè il numero di pressioni che le nuove leggi fiscali richiedono alle società, quindi ci si muove sicuramente in un mondo molto molto più complesso, ci si muove su tante nazioni, ogni nazione ha il suo pacchetto di leggi che continuamente vengono introdotte e poter stare dietro a questo tipo di trend è sicuramente molto complesso. Se solo pensiamo agli incentivi Covid, nel mondo ne sono stati emessi circa 30.000 in un anno. Quindi pensate per un tax manager di una multinazionale dover stare dietro e cogliere le opportunità e i rischi legati a un numero così alto di leggi introdotte.
Mi viene una battuta a proposito di incentivi e di crediti in circolazione. Nell'ultima audizione il direttore di agenzia ha detto con chiarezza che ci sono circa 40 miliardi in circolazione, quindi solo in Italia, quindi non proprio pochissima roba, no? Quindi circolare vuol dire anche capire se sono veri o no, e ne sappiamo qualcosa, no? Con Mary, quando c'è stato da capire l'ecobonus come girava, insomma non era proprio tutto pianeggiante e la tecnologia aiuta e fa la differenza.
Sì, tra l'altro collegandomi a questo, tutti i governi hanno elargito tantissimo in questi anni, hanno speso tantissimo e si aspettano anche di ritornare nell'uscita di cassa, e quindi molta attenzione su questo punto. Un altro tema molto importante è il tema dei talenti. Abbiamo visto anche noi come UI in prima persona come la ricerca dei talenti, trattenerli sia sempre più complicato. Ci troviamo di fronte a tantissime persone che hanno cambiato lavoro, che hanno cambiato settore, tante persone che sono andate in pensione e meno che si sono affacciati sul mercato. Questo è un po' un filo comune a tutti i mercati, tutte le nazioni e sicuramente impatta il legale, impatta il fiscale, impatta l'area finanziaria. Poi legato un po' a quello che è il tema tecnologico, sicuramente ci servono dei talenti diversi. Questi, come vi dicevo, questi 4 temi sono molto intercollegati e la tecnologia sicuramente è uno dei trend, l'abbiamo appena visto, e questo trend richiede che le persone che noi abbiamo nei dipartimenti fiscali e legali abbiano delle competenze comuni tra il tecnico, legale, fiscale e il digitale. Questo è una sfida senz'altro che chi vorrà coglierla sarà il vero agente del cambiamento, sarà quello che avrà anche un ruolo più imprenditoriale all'interno delle funzioni interne legali e fiscali, quindi sarà un po' il talento del futuro.
Proviamo Marta a vedere, condividiamo con i nostri amici la slide 7 che mi sembra
Sì.
particolarmente, perché va un po' nell'operatività. Intanto che Marta va avanti ve ne dico un'altra. Saltando indietro dalla 9, la 9 parla di risk profile e trovo molto interessante perché il 20% pensano che più o meno ci sia stata una decrescita, un 61% una crescita. Direi che, come dire, il risk profile lo spacchetterei in due grandi componenti, e questo vale secondo me fiscale e legale esattamente
Beh, abbiamo passato parte di questa giornata a parlare di come i legal counsel devono diventare più strategici per prevenire, per cogliere le opportunità, ma anche per prevenire i rischi sempre più che si affacciano sempre di più nella loro area di riferimento.
E quando parliamo di rischi non possiamo che parlare di norme che si affastellano una dentro l'altra con plurivalenze. Dopodiché non abbiamo ancora visto la giurisprudenza che arriverà ad interpretare queste norme, no? Perché noi siamo fronting, poi tra 5 anni Maria Antonietta ci dirà: guarda che la Corte, una per tutte, con Alessandro stavamo guardando la norma sugli extra profitti, no? Ma chi lo sa lì cosa succederà? Ma succederanno cose non simpaticissime.
Diciamo che le norme sono fatte per essere interpretate, quindi la giurisprudenza sempre ci sorprende a volte.
Dicevo, vogliamo provare a dare uno sguardo, Marta, alla 7, perché lì ci sono...
Sì, non ho i tuoi numeri di slide, quindi
scusa.
devi farmela vedere.
Perdonatemi, io sono rimasto ai sumeri,
Ok,
quindi
eccola
la
qua.
numerazione sumerica.
Vai, è questa.
Perfetto, guarda. È interessante, la mia 7 è la
la
sua
mia
59, capito? È come 7 anni di cane, cioè io vado in quella logica lì. Io, ovviamente il cane
Tu hai
sono
un
io.
executive summary
Io
della
c'ho l'executive
presentazione, hai letto il bigino.
Guardate qua ragazzi, questo si presta perfettamente, legale e fiscale che sia. Guardate questa costruzione. Quindi per esempio corporate secretarial, che neanche a farlo apposta è legale e fiscale per le fine, piuttosto che direct corporate income tax, currently co-sourcing 88, 85, 85% il planning, 72 il transfer pricing, quindi altissimo. Considering co-sourcing praticamente il complemento a 100 perché è 0, 2 o 1 il resto, e poi io trovo ancora più interessante leggerla al contrario questa cosa qui, cioè partiamo da sotto, payroll operation, current co-sourcing solo il 30%, quando invece il payroll sarebbe molto automatizzabile, no? Perlomeno nella sua parte più rutinaria. Giuridicamente, immagini come la leggeresti tu questa cosa?
Ma semplicemente che le funzioni di payroll non sono ancora abbastanza avanzate per essere co-sourcate. Sì, però insomma io leggo da tutti questi numeri che c'è molto spazio per lavorarci.
Questo che a noi interessa di più.
Per il mio ruolo.
Vedete il verde, dove manca un pezzo al verde arriva il blu, quindi si vanno a complementare l'una con l'altra. Mi verrebbe da dire, personalmente, quando ho letto il tax planning mi fa un po' ridere, perché ormai di tax planning non se ne fa, o perlomeno il tax planning, che chi ha la mia età si ricorda bene di avere fatto. Ovviamente è tutto prescritto, quindi non è più un problema, quella roba lì, una battuta. Ma più che tax planning vorrei dire supply chain planning, perché e lì l'aspetto legale nuovamente è strategicissimo a partire dalla forza maggiore in giù, no? Quindi direi, Marta, questo te la dice lunga su come è operativo.
Questo è proprio una slide che in qualche modo ci voglia dire che comunque ci sono talmente tante pressioni endogene che la possibilità comunque di esternalizzare, ma non come si usava prima, outsourcing totale, ma in co-sourcing. Un po' c'era la slide di prima che faceva vedere che la tecnologia si introduceva ma sempre col supporto dell'organizzazione interna. Quindi qualsiasi attività esternalizzata non è più un'esternalizzazione totale, ma è un co-sourcing, un collaborare. E la via di uscita è appunto appoggiarsi a chi in qualche modo la tecnologia la può usare su larga scala, su tanti clienti, l'ha già testata e in qualche modo quindi può essere di supporto alle funzioni fiscali, legali
poi
e
la tecnologia ha un
finanziarie.
indice di costruzione molto alto, quindi co-sourcarla significa non fare investimenti che poi vengono immobilizzati in azienda, ma poi obiettivamente avvalerti di volta in volta della tecnologia più performante. Peraltro è coerente con quello che ci siamo detti stamattina rispetto alle funzioni legali che devono diventare sempre più strategiche e meno occuparsi della parte cosiddetta di compliance, tale per cui l'utilizzo della tecnologia, che era indicato come per il 55% dei general counsel era importante ed era prioritario nella loro agenda, viene riflesso anche nell'agenda dei CFO. Quindi mi sembra che ci sia un comune sentire rispetto alla tecnologia e quanto la tecnologia possa essere di aiuto rispetto alle funzioni legali e fiscali, che è quello che poi sperimentiamo anche noi nella nostra vita quotidiana e anche nel nostro studio.
E a proposito di sperimentazioni, ragazzi, mi ha un po' impressionato la righettina dove si legge controllership. Ora, per carità, possiamo anche discutere del ruolo...
lì.
7 righe. Possiamo anche discutere quanto importante o no è una controllership forte. Una cosa però è sicura: se tu non hai i dati che arrivano da un contratto in prima battuta, o perlomeno promanano, no? come diciamo così, immediata conseguenza a un contratto, quando discuti con le autorità, e ormai le discussioni con le autorità non sono neanche più solo con le autorità italiane, perché almeno fiscalmente, ma credo anche giuridicamente in molte materie, la discussione è su più livelli. Quindi le autorità che stanno sopra, le autorità che stanno sopra. Mi è capitato recentemente un imbarazzo totale, perché pensavo di aver confezionato un ottimo prodotto e è venuto fuori che il fisco di un altro paese, perché stiamo dialogando in contemporanea, ha rilevato che il cliente aveva fornito nel paese A un certo tipo di dato e nel paese B, cioè noi, un altro tipo di dato. Dopodiché, grazie a Dio, era solo una dimenticanza. Però, sai, ci vuole pochissimo a interpretare o a misinterpretare la dimenticanza come pensavate di fare i furbacchioni, cioè di dare due informative differenti. Non era quello il caso, però dico no, i dati sono... E quindi mi impressiona che ad oggi, se stiamo parlando di un direct corporate tax all'88% e di un controllership che è esattamente alla metà, 44%, però poi vedo e mi conforta che da 44% il resto del 51% dice che dopodomani considera una co-sourcing.
Ne abbiamo parlato anche oggi del controllo dei dati. Le aziende hanno tantissimi dati da controllare, da gestire, da mettere in sicurezza, e quindi il fatto di fare co-sourcing può essere d'aiuto rispetto proprio alla gestione del day by day, ma alla gestione anche dei dati all'interno delle organizzazioni. Abbiamo finito il tempo, Davide? No, ma abbiamo finito anche la giornata. Sì. Diciamo che facciamo i saluti finali, vi ringrazio di... È stata una giornata lunga, una giornata però molto interessante. Abbiamo cercato di fare un'analisi completa di tutto quello che la Survey ci diceva fosse nella GCO agenda. Credo che nel nostro piccolo abbiamo dato degli spunti di riflessione interessanti. Ringrazio tutti gli ospiti per essere intervenuti, anche le istituzioni stamattina. Peraltro, parlando con alcuni ospiti intervenuti oggi e anche con il sottosegretario Garofoli, effettivamente quello che vorremmo lanciare sono dei tavoli di lavoro verticali su ciascuno degli argomenti che abbiamo trattato e anche sugli argomenti che più interessano il PNRR, per portarlo poi all'attenzione delle istituzioni, perché quello che forse ho dimenticato, tra virgolette, di dire stamattina è che effettivamente gran parte, il 49% degli amministratori delegati italiani pone dei dubbi sull'effettiva esecuzione del PNRR. Quindi se noi, giuristi d'impresa e legali e anche fiscalisti, forse ci mettiamo al tavolo per trattare con le istituzioni, tra di noi e poi con le istituzioni, i vari temi, possiamo dare un piccolo contributo, che poi è anche quello che sollecitava oggi Garofali. Quindi daremo il via a questi osservatori in cui sarete tutti coinvolti, se ovviamente ne avrete voglia. Grazie a tutti e buona serata.
Grazie a tutti.